What are spiritual gifts and how do I discover what mine is?
So spiritual gifts are, I believe, an important part of the life of the believer. The New Testament talks a lot about this, that Jesus actually gave gifts to man for a purpose. So we should understand what their purpose is. I have found that when we try to limit ourselves into just one or two or try to see them as our identity, the Bible actually says to desire the greater gifts. So we're actually should be thinking about being equipped in all ways, right? Being ready in all situations. So I think as you discover it, you're going to discover it as you just obey God. You're going to just do what God tells you to do no matter what. And don't say, well, because I have this gift, I can't do that. That is not how they're supposed to be used. You're supposed to obey God, but as you go and in your journey of obedience, what you're going to find is you're going to discover the ways that God has wired you, and the gifts are going to emerge, and they're even going to be pointed out by other people and go, man, God has really gifted you in this, and you're so good at this, and he's going to affirm those things. But I want you to know, you never want to limit yourself and say, well, that's just my only thing. I have found that God has called me into seasons of all the different gifts. And you can go through all the different lists in the New Testament of gifts, and there's been seasons God's had me do all of them. So I never think you need to try to limit yourself or try to pigeonhole yourself as this is the only thing I'm supposed to do or the only contribution I make to the body, but they are more like tools that have been given. And, there are certain ones in certain situations that are better suited. And I think also you're going to have maybe more dominant ones that are maybe the ones that God's going to call you into the most. And then in those seasons, you always want to complement yourself with other people who are walking in seasons of the others, right? We want to always be thinking, how do we see all of these gifts in mutual submission to one another, not the dominant over each other, not trading the tyranny of the pastor for the tyranny of the apostle. We don't want any of that kind of stuff. These are tools that were given to the body, not to rule over each other, but to actually work in tension and submission to one another, in the purpose of building up the body into maturity. So again, it's always about serving others. It's always about just bringing something to help build up and to help strengthen others is why all these gifts are given. And that's why it's important that we continue to dialogue with the Lord as we're obeying, but not limit ourselves as we go. If you're struggling to hear from God on what he might be asking you to do, I want to encourage you to check out my course on hearing God's voice and really develop this discipline of getting before the Lord and not just monologuing at him, but listening and hearing his voice and obeying wholeheartedly to do everything he's called you to do.